Who's the freak with the claws for hands? Oh no, it's Zombo. Here's your look at the NECA toys, Rob Zombie's The Munsters Retro Cloth Zombo. Hey kids, it's Zombo. From Rob Zombie's The Munsters, Zombo is coming to you live as an 8-inch clothed action figure from NECA. Tune in to the House of Zombo, sponsored by Crumble Creature Crackers, and play along with this Zombo figure, which features tailored fabric clothing, removable hats, and cereal box. And remember kids, for a limited time, get your very own Black Plague Spreader Kit in specially marked boxes of Crumble Creature Crackers cereal. First, before we begin, I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA Toys that did provide this sample of the Rob Zombie's The Munsters Retro Cloth Zombo. Now we can have a look at this review. Starting things and getting things underway, we're going to grab the tape measure just to see how tall the retro cloth figure stands. Zombo stands, like most retro cloth figures, about 8 inches in height, or the figure's 20 centimeters tall. Don't really have a lot of Rob Zombie retro cloth figures to compare, so I had to improvise. And along the lines of a Rob Zombie movie, he did do a Halloween after all. And while this isn't a Rob Zombie Halloween, it is a 2018 Michael Myers retro cloth figure to show you that he is about the same size as a regular retro cloth figure. Of course, his wig does make him just a little bit taller than Mikey here to his left. Speaking of left, to his left, Zombo comes included with his wizard's hat as well as the box of Crumble Creature Crackers. Try saying that 5 times fast. The figure, first of all, comes included with his hat. The hat is made of fairly soft plastic. It does have, again, some nice detailing done to it. You can see there's a star, there's a crescent moon, and over here there's also just a circle painted nicely in silver. This does fit on his head, although it doesn't fit on his head in a way that you would expect it to stay on his head. I did have to put a little bit of pressure on top of his head just for him to moderately hold or wear the hat. Unfortunately, though, it's not really designed to hold on his head. I guess if you put enough pressure on it, will it survive the blizzard test? Oh, look at it does. Yeah, I guess mileage may vary for how well that's going to stay on his head. If you just put it on casually, then it's only just going to stay onto the figure's head until you bang it or you move the figure around. I'm likely still going to be displaying it with the hat on his head. Just again, I'm going to put a little bit of pressure when I'm doing it, though. The figure also, along with the hat, comes also included, already mentioned, with his box of Crumble Creature Crackers, which does have Zombo here on the front. I do like that they've actually given us a box of crackers. The crackers look to be just a basic rectangular bit of white plastic, and they probably would have put, although it doesn't look like stickers in this case, maybe it is, but it actually looks more like it's been printed onto the box itself. You can see that even on the spine of the box. Well, maybe not the font is right dead center. I'm not going to really fault them for it. At least you can see there's also some ingredients there off to the side. I don't know if you could actually even be able to make out what the ingredients are, what the nutritional facts would be. I would imagine they probably wouldn't be all that great for you. And then on the back, you can also see as well, they're advertising the Black Plague Spreader Kit. And some nice little advertisements there also on the back as well. Now, this does fit into Zombo's hands. The thing, though, about his hands, he does have, like in his song's sake, he does have these big, giant creature hands. You can take the box of crackers and sort of just wedge them in there. And he does do a pretty good job of actually holding the crackers. Being that there's no real other place to actually store this with the figure, I'm going to definitely be displaying him with the crackers in his hand. Literally on the other hand, though, really doesn't have the available sculpting, I would say, to hold the cracker box properly. So I think if you are looking to display this figure with this specific accessory, the one I'm pointing at right now, it's this hand that you're going to want to use that for. Taking this out of his hand, because I know I'm only just going to ultimately drop it. Getting a closer look, though, at Zombo. Neat looking figure. Not one from a movie I really like, but one thing that's interesting about Zombo is that he didn't only just make his appearance in the Rob Zombie's Munster movie, but he actually appeared in the original, was it 60s Munster series on TV as well. In fact, there's an episode that I actually remember, I think it was maybe from season 2, where Eddie wins the chance to go behind the scenes, backstage, and see Zombo himself. And he actually ends up meeting not Zombo, but the actor that plays him, and then he realizes that Zombo isn't real. Zombo, actually, for all intents and purposes, doesn't look that far different from the redesign that we get here from Rob Zombie's movie. The only thing notably I would say about the difference between the two Zombos is that the Zombos from the original series would have actually had very large teeth. He actually puts in a fake bit of fake dentures before he starts going out on stage. And like the dentures that he has gives him this big giant white smile. Whereas this version of Zombo from the Rob Zombie movie actually has more sort of fangs, and they're definitely colored differently. The coloring differently actually does work to the figure's credit, because it does bring a lot of extra color that wouldn't have been normally there had they just given the straight dentures that he had in the series. I like the darker coloring that they gave to his lips. I don't know if you can actually see it or not, but there's a little bit of additional sort of purplish red that he has for his gums. And overall, I do like really the way they've sculpted the face with some nice dark eyeshadow added there just to bring the eyes out. His hair is rather interesting because immediately getting him out of the box, you may just think that he's got white hair. He doesn't. In fact, if you look at really closely at it, you'll realize it's clear plastic, and then they just brush the white paint over top of it. It sort of gives him sort of very straw-like hair, and it works really well for the figure. I like the way they've done that using the clear plastic. For his rest of his body, of course, just if I was to lift up the robe, normally you don't want to lift up the wizard's robe, but just underneath that, he actually has quite a lot of layers of clothing. He has just normal pants, but underneath that, he's got himself a white retro cloth body. On top of that, though, he does then have the wizard's robe, which does have all this additional detailing printed on there, the symbols, the serpent there here on the front, all painted in that same silver that he had on his hat. And then he does also have a cape, a really nice flowing cape on the back that does have, again, crescent moons. If you were to fan the cape out, as best as I can do it here, you can actually see that the cape is made up of 3 parts. The main part in the middle, and then seamed on the side, you can see they've added some additional panels of fabric there also as well. And all of it is getting treated. This really nice silver crescent moon, and it's on the other side there as well. Technically, you could untie the cape. You just have to undo it from the top here. But I think to myself, like, why would you want to even remove the cape? It certainly adds the charm. It adds the fun to the figure. I'm just going to leave the cape right on. And of course, if I was to roll up the sleeve here, you can kind of see what's going on here. Still, you got yourself a white retro cloth body, with, again, the additional articulation now added to the elbows here. And then they've added over top of it, they've molded, brand new molded hands. Of course, Zombo, I keep forgetting his name, Zombo, does have like sort of gloved hands that he has over top. Now, the gloved hands, I'm sure they probably could use for a future retro cloth figure. I just can't really think of one right now, but I'm sure they probably could use one for like a more like a werewolf type of figure maybe down the road. One thing, unfortunately, though, you may have already seen here, is with the robe, it does leave behind some staining. I've got a stain here on the end of the glove. I've got a little bit of stain here also on the white of his body. The problem with, of course, having a white body and then black material over top of it is by the way they've dyed the material, it's only ever going to leave a stain behind. But to be honestly fair, though, I mean, you're not ever really going to see it anyways. You're only going to see it if people like myself are rolling up the sleeve and showing you guys what it looks like underneath the hood. For the articulation here for Zombo, let's start first with his head sculpt. Head sculpt, you'll be happy to know, is on a ball joint. I mean, while obviously he's going to be a little bit more limited just because he's got longer hair here, you still can move the head up, move it down, and you can somewhat move it back and forth. And of course, you can rotate it as well. The thing about it, though, you just want to be careful that the hairs don't catch onto the cape and pull the cape off the figure's body. Bring the cape back just a little bit on both sides. So you can bring the arms out comfortably, I would say, at 90 degrees. You can take the arms as well and rotate them forward, rotate them back. Figure does have a bicep swivel, double hinge on the elbow, and already looked at, he does have the swivel in the hands. The upper torso seems to be on a ball joint, so you can rotate that around. The legs, though, a little more limited because, again, he's going to be inside the robe after all. You can't split the legs, and you can take the legs and move them forward. You can move them back. And just to bring this up just a little bit so you can actually see, he does have a double hinge on the knee. Nice to see that they did that. And because, again, like this is using a newer retro cloth body, it also means that Zombo does have an ankle rocker. Really nice to see that they did do that. Yeah, overall, again, a nice looking figure. Whether you like the Rob Zombie, I know a lot of people don't like the Rob Zombie Munster movie. I thought it was just okay, not one I would ever really watch again. But I like the look of Zombo, and because again, Zombo didn't just originate in the Rob Zombie. Let's just go ahead and get his hat on his head. While he didn't just originate in the Rob Zombie Munster movie, this guy existed long before that. He originated in the original Munster series. So if you were a fan of the original Munster series and not so much Rob Zombie's take, let's just put in quotations, his take on the Munsters, I would definitely still say recommend getting this guy and adding him to your collection. If not necessarily to support Rob Zombie's work, but more to support the better, more superior, if you ask me, Munster series that originated way back when in black and white. Make snack time fun time with Crumble Creature Crackers. You know, here's the problem when it comes to a retro cloth Zombo figure, that for all intents and purposes, he's a really fun, creepy looking character that goes very well on a shelf with all the other retro cloth figures that NECA have put out before, but it just happens to come from a really crappy movie. Rob Zombie's Munster movie was a dumpster fire, but I'm not going to put that on the shoulders of Zombo. I'm not going to do that, because what I do get here is a nice looking figure that not only harks back to the original Munster series, but really just to look at this guy. He's all black and white. He's got a little box of creature cereal in his hand, and he comes also included with the wizard's hat, although I didn't display this guy with a wizard's hat. For all the work that NECA put into this guy, this is not a figure that even if you hate the Munster movie, I would say pass on if you guys see them. Because really, when you do get this guy out of his plastic prison, you actually do put this guy on the shelf with your rest of your retro figures, I think you're going to actually start liking this guy the more and more that you see him. He's got all the new updated articulation points that retro cloth figures now all seem to have. The double hinges on the elbows, the double hinges on the knees, the ankle rocker, yes, on his feet. Yeah, I don't think overlook this guy simply just because of the movie that he came from. There's lots of times, in fact, I've actually picked up figures, even though I have loathed the movie that the characters have appeared in, and this falls into that category. Like the look of Zombo, hate the movie that Zombo happened to appear in. What do you guys think of Retro Cloth Zombo? Let me know down below in the comments section. And once again, a big thank you to the folks over at NECA Toys that did provide the sample of the Rob Zombie's Munster Zombo figure, Retro Cloth Zombo, that we can have a look at this review. If you guys enjoyed this review, want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and certainly on board to see more, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and that you're also turning on the bell notification. And also, popping up at the very end of this video, if you have a little bit of time on your hands, you're snacking away at Crumble Creature crackers, and you want something to be watching, why not check out my playlist of other retro cloth figures that I've looked at. Some from movies I like, others from movies I didn't like as much. But it's definitely going to be a lot more coming your way, guys. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.